Welcome back to the farm, everyone. As I think they say, the early bird gets the worm. A more fitting way to put that is the early bird goes and checks his fields so he doesn't get to them and get stuck with the sprayer. Field I'm going to scout is over at Tower Hill. That is west of our main farm, about 35 miles. So it'll take me every bit of 40 minutes or so in a pickup just to get over here. I didn't want to bring the sprayer over and realize it's too wet and then just have the sprayer stuck there, because I really need to spray corn too if I get the opportunity today, which involves changing the tires. The good news is that it appears to be dry over here, at least dry for this farm. The bad news is that we have a weedy mess. A lot of winter annuals. You can see some mare's tail out there, which is actually kind of a fall weed. I think we're going to do a little bit of a change in our normal management plan to make this work. We've come to realize in the last few years since acquiring this farm in particular that it has some very wet spots that even hold moisture really far into the drying periods. I think because of the heavy winter annual cover and even some of the summer weeds growing, cocklebur, giant ragweeds, some water hemp, grasses coming up, I'm going to do something here that I've been talking about doing all season, and this farm is probably going to be my guinea pig, for better or worse. With the way we're currently doing things, we'd bring 2 field cultivators over here and just work this to death. The problem is some of these areas are so thick with those sod-like root masses from the winter annuals. They've got so much time to grow because we're delayed in the planting season that the field cultivator is going to drag up balls. It's going to have to get stuff worked multiple times. I mean, we're probably going to spend $1 gallon an acre in fuel, not to mention road travel for both field cultivators and all that. I ran the vertical till out here last fall. It's pretty smooth, so the seed bed is level. I think I'm just going to come over here first thing this morning, or once I get back and get everything taken care of, and spray not just a residual herbicide. I'm going to spray a burn down mix. For those of you who aren't familiar, a burn down is essentially the street name on the farm for chemicals that kill actively growing weeds. Currently with our tillage is kind of our burn down. That iron going through the field, the steel, ripping the roots out of these plants and hopefully terminating them. You can use chemical alternatives though, and I think if I come out here, spray a burn down, give it another day, it's going to be 87 degrees and sunny today. Tomorrow, I'm going to come out and just no-till these soybeans into a stale seed bed. I know there are a few spots that look a little heavy. I think that they'd probably be heavy even if we did work them, because it seems like our field cultivators in wet spots are just pulling up wet clods and actually probably making the seed bed worse than just planting straight into it. I scouted what I think is the worst spot of the field in terms of moisture. It's gonna go. I'll scout the rest of it with the sprayer later. It's also first thing in the morning, so the moisture's come back up. I bet you this afternoon when it's 87, it'll be dry, 1.5 inches down. This decision is a combination of logistics, agronomics, and economics. The financial side of things is our residual only program is pretty stout in terms of effectiveness. I'm really a fan of the chemistry we use. It's only 17 or 18 bucks an acre plus application cost, which we're gonna have that regardless of what we do. Adding a burn down, depending on what chemistry groups you wanna throw in, 10 to 12, $13 more an acre. Remember, we're cutting out the fuel of the tractors and of course the depreciation, the wear and tear. So it's probably pretty much a wash, if not cheaper, to come out here and just plant straight in. The question is, are we gonna get as good of a seed bed? Time will tell. We'll figure out. Doing a little test here on 330 acres, not the best place to start, but fairly confident in this practice today. Unbelievably wet over here in western Shelby County. I checked this 2 days ago and there was still water standing in places and maybe 10% of the fields were planted. Now they've made pretty good progress the last day or two. Probably going a little earlier than they should, just like we normally do. But if you wait for perfection, sometimes you miss the window. Rather be a day early than 3 weeks late. I've got to get a move on it here because the tanker's just pulling out the driveway to go pick up a load of chemical. Probably be 30 minutes, he'll be up there loaded, and then another 40 or so to get to Tower Hill. So I need to get the sprayer ready and go ahead and leave, and we should be there about the same time. Look at that. Those beans I planted in the mud are up. At least most of them. I don't know if they're all up. I guess we'll see if they yield any less, because it was sure wet when I planted them. Right now I have my boom set up for spraying my residual stuff at 10 gallon acre. I've got a size 4 air inducted flat fan from T-Jet. It works great at that 10 gallon an acre rate. However, I'm looking to get a little bit better coverage, and I also need to size up the orifice to a size 5 to make that 15 gallon an acre a little more reasonable to spray. These size 4s at 10 gallons an acre, I mean, I can run 20 mile an hour and not be overpressured. 15 gallon an acre versus 10 is going to change that a little bit. I'm going ahead and putting on my new post application tips. I'm going to use this for corn, Liberty, and beans. These are Greenleaf size 5 air inducted twin fans. I don't know the actual name of them. It has 2 nozzles on it. It's got the size 5 orifice and then 2 different nozzles. It's going to spray multiple directions, and I'm also going to put them on a different direction each way, and it's going to basically get me 4 different angles of coverage on one plant. One thing I don't know with these Haggies is if that's going to be hitting. Yeah, it probably is. I'll just do it one way. Okay, we're just going to do them one direction. You're supposed to be able to alternate them, and I might do that in the future. For now, I'll just do it flat across. Pattern test just to make sure everything looks good. Missing an O-ring here, I think. Okay, we're out of water. I liked what I saw. I am going to change these ones around. I may have to put some more extensions on them. I don't like how far in advance it's spraying. It's okay for it to spray behind, but if I'm going up to a property line with a neighbor, I don't want to kill 2 foot of their crop if it's up. So I'd rather get it flush across the boom and have it spray backwards. I'll be the first to admit it looks ridiculous. It's just what I have to do with any kind of twin fan nozzle on the front boom of this Haggie to clear the stands and all that other stuff. Should work. Better get on the road. One thing I have started doing this year is actually wearing my seat belt when I'm going down the road in this thing. 35 mile an hour, all the weight behind you. Wouldn't take much for you to be out the front windshield, so thinking of my family and my life. Take a couple extra seconds, put the seatbelt on. Even sometimes I put it on in the tractor just in case. Really doesn't take that much effort. You never think you'll need a seatbelt. When you do, you're going to wish you had it. Even at 35 mile an hour, this is a long drive. Every bit of an hour. Tillage tractors are hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. That's why the no-till over here actually makes a little bit of sense for us. It was worked in the fall, so it's not a true no-till. I think spraying this today and then trying to plant it tomorrow is the right move. There's a little bit of moisture on top. Almost 90 ought to dry this out. One more day and then we'll knife our beans in. They've already sprayed their burn down and their field looks very dead. I don't know if that's going into soybeans or corn. Can't really tell. Dad's back home trying to run the soybean planter this morning, so I gotta keep my phone pretty close. I've already gotten about a dozen calls with different issues from folding that DB planter, which is not easy, I will admit, to getting the planter planting. It's not like it's that hard, it's just a lot different than the 1775 style planter that he's run for over a decade. Completely different toolbar, completely different startup process. I'm not sure a spot like that is going to be ready to plant tomorrow or next week, even if it doesn't rain. There's obviously something up there. If we get over here tomorrow, we'll just plant around it. It's not going to raise a crop anyways if it's that wet. It took almost all morning. I've got all 330 acres here at Tower Hill sprayed with burn down. I think waiting till tomorrow is probably the right choice for planting. Sunshine today, sunshine, heat, and wind tomorrow. And on top of all that, Dad was trying to run the soybean planter, as I mentioned, and that transmission sensor issue popped back up. It couldn't get it to go away. So as of right now, the 8R370 is pretty much decommissioned until we can get a service tech out there. Thankfully, Alliance did have someone out and about, or someone willing to work for us on Sunday. They're going to take a look at it here shortly. The last few miles after a drive like that feels like when you come back from a long vacation, a long drive on the road, and you're almost just excited to be back at home base in your area you recognize. Cleaning her out. We can use this mix again some other time. It's not like it's bad, just extra. As you can see, they fixed the planter tractor. Dad's got about 2/3 of a field planted. He's gonna go finish a couple small fields of corn, and I'm gonna plant the rest of these beans. I got about 3 fields to plant today, and they're really not super efficient fields. Take a long time to get a little bit done. Usually why they're our last ones. Currently waiting on seed. Dad said he actually put the beans in the ground another notch because we did all this tillage, and you want to make sure your beans aren't in dry dirt, and it's so warm that the moisture is really evaporating out of the ground quickly. It's not a big deal if we get a rain, but you never really want to leave your beans in dry dirt. So we put them deeper. That way, even if it doesn't rain, they should still germinate. I do have at least one field I planted 3 or 4 days ago. It was an 80 of black dirt, and I'm a little concerned about germination-wise because I planted them maybe a day or two early, and I just didn't get that good of a seedbed finish, and I'm worried that they may not emerge that well. Who knows? That black dirt's really forgiving though, so it's one of those deals where maybe that'll make up for it. Here's the concerning part though. Now we're getting on the opposite side of the forecast where they keep pushing the rains off. There's supposed to be storms Monday into Tuesday night. They're gone. Wednesday they have a ½ inch. Tuesday nothing. That's Thursday, Friday nothing. Saturday a little bit. Sunday, Monday another inch. But we keep missing them. They keep putting them in now, and we're missing them. So we are totally coin flip here. And if it turns off dry for the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to be in big trouble. Not because we planted wet. A lot of what we planted was in pretty good condition. More so just because the heat of summer combined with super dry conditions really slows down seedling growth. That would almost be a worse outcome than last year where we got an early start in April and then got no rain in May and June. Because at least we got good growth in April, whereas now we're planting 2nd or 3rd week of May, and if it turns off dry now, we may be in big trouble even trying to hit last year's averages, even with a good growing season. The delayed planting really stacks the deck against you. And if you look off in the distance, you can see Chris with the seed tender, not flying down the road, driving a very reasonable pace. He may not be the fastest, but he sure is reliable most of the time. I'm gonna hop out. We are switching from Pioneer 37A18s to Don Mario 3756Es, both 3/7 enlist soybeans. So other than them looking different out in the field and probably yield differences, you're not gonna be able to tell anything in terms of maturity and how we manage them. Oh man, that's the price we're paying for drying right now. Road oil and rocks everywhere. I'm not complaining. It is what it is. I'm glad the ground's dry. Just had some other error code pop up about CAN bus stuff. That's not really the greatest. I don't know if that would be something with my EPG. When in doubt, shut the tractor off, shut the battery off, and try it again. I'm gonna hop out real quick, flip the battery switch, and look in the generator area, make sure everything's hooked up. We will see if this fixes it. I walked around, nothing looked out of place. I made sure the ISO was plugged in. Could have another service call today. Right next to home too. Second to last field around here and I'd be done. Of course we gotta have problems. That's not a good start. Never good when it starts beeping. Row unit controllers, check 12. 19 through 36. Okay, well that's because I shut the def off. I was impatient. Be a wire pinched, although I don't know how it didn't get pinched immediately when I unfolded. All of our options have essentially been exhausted. Checked every fuse box that we could find. Didn't see anything. That doesn't mean we didn't miss something. I guess we're not going to finish these two fields until the morning. Another change of scenery here. I'm headed to plant our last field of corn. It's right in the city of Mattoon. It's good dirt, it's just a wet hole, and it's about the first time it's been dry, and I'll probably still have to go around the spot. I'd like to have the rest of these beans knocked out so we could focus on the 300 plus over there at Tower Hill in the morning. That's not going to happen. It's been a long day and it's not over yet. They've really lowered that rain out of the forecast, so not a big deal if we can't get all those fields over at Tower Hill done tomorrow that I sprayed this morning. I would definitely hope to do that. It's just a matter of how complicated the soybean fix is. If it's a fuse that we just didn't see, it'll be up and running first thing. If it's a cut wire or some kind of wire issue, a mouse got in it, I don't know. I mean, that could decommission our planter for the rest of the spring. It's the problem with those electronics. They make the planter incredibly efficient. I can cover a lot of acres. If it goes down for an electronic reason, though, sometimes it can be time-consuming to fix and or expensive. This season exemplifies why it seems to benefit you to over-invest in equipment, especially planting equipment. That way you can plant when you can, not when you have to. You can cover acres when the opportunity is there, not at the last second. I think we've capitalized on everything so far. There's one field I'm a little worried about that I planted a little wet and it's been dry since. Other than that, I'm pretty confident in what we put in the ground. Here we are. Beautiful powdered up, dusty seed bed, other than maybe one spot that's a little heavy. We'll plant through it. It was just dry enough that I planted it all. I don't know if it'll come up. We'll probably be back out here spotting that in, maybe. Or not, if it's standing water all month, we won't need to. All of the corn is planted for the first time. It looks like someone to the north is getting some thunderstorms. That's fine, as long as they don't come down this way. I still got 400 acres of beans to plant tomorrow. We're in for the night. Hopefully it doesn't rain overnight and they get our planter fixed first thing so we can finish planting beans tomorrow. It's been another long day. I mean, I'm knocking on 16 plus hours right now of work. Driving to those faraway farms is exhausting. Check in with you guys in the morning. Alliance told us this morning that they're a couple hours out on a planter tech getting here. I've got everything off my list other than changing the spray tires to the skinny ones from the floaters. I'm just going to start pulling fuses. I'm going to go across this bar, pull every single fuse and the dust covers and everything, and see if there's one that's blown. I checked every fuse I could find, nothing. Skylar from Alliance Tractor's been here for an hour now. Some kind of electrical issue, we don't know. It's already almost 11. Dad and I have talked it over with the landowner, well, briefly in a roundabout way, and we're going to switch the ExactEmerge corn planter over to beans, which we haven't done in like 4 or 5 years, and plant beans because we want to get that Tower Hill farm planted. And even if he gets this going in the next hour, we won't be over to Tower Hill till nighttime at this pace. That's nothing against Skylar from Alliance Tractor. It's just electrical issues are not easy to diagnose. It's kind of a wild goose chase, if you will. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Got the ExactEmerge switched over to soybeans. The DB60s back there are still broken down. Didn't really take that long. Had plenty of help, had it changed over in 15 minutes or so. Look at this service. It's fueling us up and deafening us up. I'm getting the settings changed on the monitor. Other than the field where the DB60s broke down at right now, this is our last field around home of beans to plant. Looks like it's primed and ready to go. Just need a planter. Oh, yes. Nice, fresh, tar asphalt patch on the road on a 90-degree day. This is why we wax the tractors. It really helps with the road oil removal because you get a lot of it. That's not even particularly road oil, that's patch. I beat the seed tender here, that's pretty impressive. Looks like all the neighbors in the area are running. We're gonna go ahead and load up and see if this planter will plant beans. Has been about 4 years since it's done it. I messed around with a few things, got her running smoothly. Our limiting factor for ground speed here is really going to be the smoothness of the ground. If it's too rough, I'll have to back it out. I will be the first one to admit there are going to be some spots, because these fields have some water issues, that aren't perfect. I am happy with what I'm seeing so far. An area like this is exactly why I didn't want to run the field cultivators. I thought we would just pull up way too much moisture and these weeds would crumble up poorly. We're no-tilling in them on 30-inch rows. Would have preferred 20s, but you got to work with what you have. The only advantage is the field cultivator would have dried this ground out a little bit more. Looks like where it's really wet, it's struggling to go in the ground a little bit. Not everywhere. Or maybe I need to back my speed down just to make sure the units aren't bumping out. Could be that. Yeah, it's just struggling to go in there. This is also one of those wet spots in the field. You can see it's still damp. It'd be damp even if it got worked. For the most part though, I think I'll just back my speed down, limit myself at like 10 miles an hour. That way I don't get too rowdy out here. When you switch the planter over, you have to change these rumble strips. Some of you may remember me replacing them when we were setting up for corn last year. The soybeans have a smooth one. We did everything, we had one extra, and I said, you sure we just had an extra one? And Dad said, well, take it with you, and if one's acting up, check it. I'll be darned, row 22. It obviously makes a difference because this row was planting, I don't know, 10% light. That's where that one goes. I've got 80 acres in the ground so far. Had to fill back up and send Katie home for more beans. Objectively speaking here, this is looking way better than I was anticipating. I think the seed actually looks like it's in a phenomenal trench. Time will tell on emergence if this is a good idea or not. Definitely something that we're gonna have to look into in the future if we want to stop doing so much tillage in the spring. I know a question a lot of you are rightfully asking: if we can plant soybeans in 30-inch rows, why do we plant them in 20-inch rows? That's certainly an honest point to raise, really. The issue is not the spacing of the row from a yield perspective, unless you're on very non-productive soil. It's really about weed control. The narrower your rows are, the quicker your beans get to canopy, and the canopy of your soybeans is the ultimate weed control. They are the best herbicide you can have out there, is a nice shade over the soybeans you're planting. You wouldn't think that 10 inches of row spacing matters much for a plant like a soybean, but that could be a week earlier that these soybeans canopy, and if it's a dry summer, the width is what would really hurt us for weed control and even yield. The lack of shading on the ground can be a negative. On productive soils, and I would actually call this relatively productive for the area, I don't think you're giving much up on 30-inch rows. I would have liked to have them planted in April, not late May. I think we've lost some yield there already. Maybe narrower rows would be a better fit. If there wasn't a pretty good chance of rain tonight into tomorrow, severe storms, and it already being so late, we would have just waited on the DB60 to be fixed. As a matter of fact, I think it's repaired right now. Dad's running it home, albeit it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I wouldn't have much time to come over here and plant after our last 2 fields were planted. Anyways, I saw it more as a bird in the hand is worth more than 2 birds in the bush, for those of you who are familiar with that saying. I would rather have beans planted over here, even if they're on wider rows. Maybe we have to make an additional post-application herbicide pass, as opposed to running the risk of not getting these planted and then getting an inch of rain and us not getting them planted till June. I think this opportunity was too good to pass, even if we have to be on the wider row spacing. I'm not sure that we're giving up yield, but there is going to be a negative effect on our weed control. I'm not exactly expecting it here, but the best beans we've ever raised on our farm 6 years ago were on 30-inch rows. They were on super productive soil with not too much rain, or not a damaging amount of rain. And it was this planter that did it, I believe. The first 120 acres is done. The trenches look phenomenal out there. I really love what I'm seeing. The only thing we can have on both of our planters to make something like this more feasible or higher quality would be a nice set of row cleaners. Because we're running full tillage, we just don't see that being necessary. However, having a set of row cleaners is like having a little tillage tool on the front of your planter. In boundary track we trust. Hard to see where the edge of the field is when it's grass all the way through. That Roundup sure is slow. It'll die sooner than you think. Probably 2 or 3 more days. Filled up with seed for the 3rd time. Dad and Jeff came by to bring me a few spare closing wheels. We had a few where the bearings are going out. They're the original bearings from when we got this planter 6-7 years ago. When we put the spiked wheels on them, we kept the original bearings. Maybe we should have changed them. And one by one, they're all going out this year. We're about 280 acres in, so close to the finish line. I just dug this bean up that I planted 2 hours ago maybe, and look at that, it's already swelling up there in the ground. That's what it's like planting when soil temperatures are warm, straight into moisture. These beans will be germinated probably by tomorrow morning. It's already starting to crack out. Amazing. Got one more 50-acre field to do, and then we can head home. Can we just take a moment to appreciate this wheat crop here to the south? That looks about as good as it can. Not that I'm a wheat expert. Except for that skip row. Don't pretend you didn't see that. That's a wrap. D-U-N. Dunzo corn and beans. Pretty good evening of planting here. Hopefully these 30-inch rows turn out all right for us. They're going to be a little interesting to spray because you have to kind of treat them like corn. You stay off the rows. 20-inch rows, we just run them over at an angle and not worry about it. One fun fact is that at 140,000 seeds, this planter almost planted more seeds in the last 6 hours than it did in the first 70% of corn planting. Higher population, beans, you got a lot of them shooting out those units. Going on 17 hours of work right now, and we still got another hour on the road till we're home. At least there isn't much traffic this time of night. Oh man, it has been a long day. Dad was able to fire the DB60 back up after Skylar worked on it for like 4 hours or so, maybe 3. I would still be over there at Tower Hill planting right now. Probably 100 acres left with the timeline the way it unfolded. We'll see how the 30-inch rows work out. I'm pretty confident in them, unless it doesn't rain. But if it doesn't rain, nothing's gonna work out that great. We're done with planting our own stuff. Maybe think about replanting. I'll check in with you guys tomorrow. We've had a wet spot in the corner of this field for probably 10 years now. We found a tile bubbling up, so a couple weeks ago we had Dean Greens come in, lay a new line across here and hook into it. That way we can actually farm them now. And the guys out here are just crushing the weeds up and about an acre, maybe. Putting some spiked closing wheels back on the bean planter because Dad robbed them last night when I was finishing up. As I explained, when we put these on the corn planter, we took them off of the old bean planter that we traded in that already had 10,000 plus acres planted. Then they've been on the corn planter for the last 2 years. These bearings may have 15,000 acres, and it's just this year, I don't know if it's ground conditions, planting speed, whatever, they're finally starting to give out. I planted one farm of corn a week or so ago, and I lost like 3 of them. They were just gone because the bearing went out and then the whole thing falls off. So we're gonna put some new ones back on the bean planter because we took them off, put them on the corn planter. We probably should have just put whole new bearings on, a whole new wheel system when we moved these to the corn planter, but we didn't. You gotta be careful because they're reverse threaded. One side spins the way the wheel does, so that's the left-handed thread. The other one does the same, but it's a right-handed thread because it's on the opposite side. These are the Copperhead furrow cruisers. The planter came from the factory with the Yetter poly twisters. These are omnidirectional, doesn't matter what side they go on. The poly twisters are actually angled specifically, so there's a left one and a right one. Since we got this planter set to beans, Dad is spiking in some on this little 1 acre field west of my house. We don't have a good entrance for it, and the DB60 would run a lot of corn over to get here in the south field, so we thought it'd be convenient to use this one. Replanting one of those ponds we went around a couple weeks ago when we planted. Told you they wouldn't come up out here. The rest of them look really good. We've replanted some beans, switched over, replanted some corn. Now we need to get the fat tires off the sprayer, get the skinnies on, because I've got some early planted corn that is desperately in need of some post spray. It's about my least favorite part about spraying and having a sprayer, is switching from fat to skinny tires. Work, you can see how much drop off there is over there. No, I mean like right here where we are. Needless to say, we don't exactly have putting the skinny tires on down to a science. There's room for improvement. Now we just need to go spray some corn. And today is totally a good day to spray. 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Don't have to worry about the neighboring crops at all. With a chance of severe storms tonight, field cultivators are unhooked, tractors are inside, planters are inside, Higgy's tucked up against the shed, and we're hunkered down just in case it rains. And I hate to say it for the people that still have planting to do, it is hot enough, it is dry enough at this point. We've got beans and dry dirt in places that we'd take a nice half-inch to inch rain as long as it's not a hard one. We've got offers out there. If anyone needs help, they know they can reach out to us for planting or tillage or whatever. I'm not sure I would take our help. I've seen the quality of our work some days. Anyways, I'm gonna rest and relax a little bit here. Hopefully we get a shower tonight, recharge, then reevaluate what we're gonna do moving forward. As always, I greatly appreciate every single one of you continuing to tune in and support the channel. Your viewership means the world to me. Catch you all in the next episode. Until then, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!